Hello and welcome to Let's Coach here at Life Coach University. I'm Norma Frahn and I'm an emotional eating coach, certified life coach, and integrative nutrition health coach. And I really focus on helping women make peace with food, their bodies, and to stop dieting and reconnect to themselves so that they can be free from the grip of emotional eating and learn to move through life without being so concerned about the food they're eating and the bodies they live in. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting a smaller body. I totally understand that, but it doesn't have to be the obsession that it's become for so many of us. And by tackling emotional eating, because it's a big deal and it's complicated, we can solve the weight and the shape of our body by dealing with emotional eating and not doing these silly, crazy, restrictive diets that truly just aggravate the problem. So that's what I focus on. And what I like to do here at Let's Coach is start you off with something to think about, something that is relatable to everyday life that can get you further down the road of letting go of all of the diet culture stuff that we've all just accumulated over the years, because that's the society that we live in. It's right in our faces all the time. And I feel it's time to be able to turn our back on that, look inward, and solve for these issues for the last time. So before I dive into what I want to cover today, let's just do a quick little bit of housekeeping. If you're joining me live and you want to be coached on a specific topic, all you need to do is click the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you'll see a Q&A box. Just hit that, type in your question, and I'll either grab it during the talk, or when we get to the end, I'll kind of go through all those talks. I think I did that wrong. Let's rewind and start again. Raise your virtual hand if you want to be coached, and I will bring you up and we will actually talk live. If you'd rather just use that Q&A box, do what I just said. Click on the bottom of your screen and then the Q&A box, type in your question, and I'll respond. And the other way is just to listen. Just take what you can, take what makes sense, and enjoy the conversation. And I'm sure whether it's my Let's Coach session or anyone else's, there's always something you're going to be able to get when you just listen into some conversation and some coaching. And that's what we're all about here. We want to coach millions more and make it accessible for everybody. So if you're not quite sure how this coaching thing works, just listen in. And when you're ready, you can either raise your hand or use that Q&A box. All right. So today I want to talk about how to enjoy the summer parties, the holidays, and the weekends, and still make progress towards whatever your personal goals may be relative to your body, your nutrition, your weight, because it's all interconnected, right? So what you see all over the socials in terms of kind of, I like to call it kind of cliche advice, is you see things like, oh, one day won't make or break your progress. Enjoy the holiday and then get back on track. Or you'll hear something about, you can still have the alcohol, you can still make progress towards your goals, just have one or two drinks and pass on seconds. And yep, probably some truth there, but how helpful is that really? Another one you hear quite often is, you can't gain any considerable amount of body fat in one day, so don't worry about what the scale says tomorrow. Also true, but probably not terribly helpful when you're trying to navigate the weekend or a barbecue and you just don't know what to do about the food. So here's what I would offer. There's absolutely nothing wrong with any of those messages, and you've probably heard them all a million times over. But like I said, while they may all be true, how helpful are they really? I really think they're missing the point. So to me, what's more important is owning your choices. There's no rule that says you have to indulge on a holiday or a weekend. And there's no law that says that you have to do what everybody else is doing, because we often get really stuck in these conditioned patterns where we just kind of go through the motions without even giving it any conscious consideration. We get stuck in those patterns. And it can be the weekend pattern, maybe of overindulging in food or drink, or just being a bit more excessive with things than we would be during the week because we're out of our routine. And I want everybody to enjoy their weekend. Or, you know what, it can be, like I said, that weekend pattern. Maybe you order out more instead of cooking at home, or maybe you go out for drinks more. Again, all perfectly fine if it's a conscious choice. So the pattern of saying yes just because someone asked you if you wanted something or you wanted to go somewhere or do something, and you didn't want to say no or set a clear boundary, that in and of itself can be a place to start changing the pattern and stopping and taking a moment to consider what you actually want, not necessarily what the other person or the family member may want of you or what you think you should do. So it's not always about what anyone else expects of you. So keep that in mind. Other people want you to be the version of you that makes them feel better about themselves. That's just human nature. It's not malicious intent. It's just how all humans are hardwired. So take a moment to consider yourself. What do you really want? And if the answer is, yeah, I want to go out and eat everything and drink a lot, have at it, but own that decision. Also accept that your outcomes are a product of your decisions that you make most of the time over a long period of time. So there's no point in beating yourself up over the results or the decision. You're making those choices. You're the one that's making those choices. You're the one that's driving those results or lack of results. So when you get really upset about, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ate that dessert or I had those drinks and I didn't even really want to. Well, you kind of did. You chose to eat it or drink it. So at some level, you wanted it. And maybe it was that level of just people pleasing, just going along with the crowd. But at some level, you made that decision. So instead, maybe you could think, like, I ate that dessert because it felt good in the moment, but I didn't take the time to really assess my long-term goals. So next time I'll be a little more mindful. That's a more compassionate way to look at it rather than beating yourself up. Or you could look at it like, I ate the dessert because I know I can eat some in moderation without ruining my progress. And that's also true. So regardless of the decision that you made, just don't forget that it's your decision. No one forced you to do it. And it doesn't matter how persistent your best friend is or whoever it is that's pushing you to more alcohol or pushing you to a second plate. You get to make the decision and it should be what you want. So absolutely, one day, one indulgence, one weekend doesn't make or break progress, but the pattern of doing what everybody else is doing or saying or acting or saying yes just because you didn't stop and take a moment to consider what you actually want, that's something that will make or break your progress. Let's see. So now you know how certain people have results and some people don't. It's that long-term pattern. The people that are actually getting results are the ones that are thinking very mindfully about what they want and are not putting a lot of energy and thought into what other people are doing or pushing them towards. It's all about your personal boundaries and doing what works best for you. So just to be clear, I'm not saying you have to be perfectly dialed in every weekend or every holiday or any day for that matter. It's simply a message about deciding what you want, making those decisions accordingly, and accepting whatever decisions you make and the outcome that follows. And remember, it's not just a one-day decision that's going to quote unquote ruin it for you. It's when there's a pattern of making decisions that have an opposite outcome than what you want. So you can say yes if you want to say yes. You absolutely can. But you can also say no if you really want to say no. And recognize you don't need anybody's permission, not mine, not your friends, not your family members. You only need to give yourself permission. And sometimes all it takes is just a little reminder of that. So I hope that's what this message served as today, because man, I know how much pressure you sometimes feel when you've got some people in your life that are wanting to go do something or eat something or go out for drinks, and you just don't want to. So our natural instinct is to please people. But there comes a time when we go so far to please people that we completely lose ourselves. And that's really what the message is today. I want you to be able to make decisions that feel right for you, that make sense to you, and are representative of what you want to do. So I hope that makes some sense. Okay, let's see what we got for questions. Okay, this is a good one. So how can I be more mindful about food and body choices during these special occasions? Yeah, of course, this is a tricky one because we get caught up in all that stuff, right? Special occasions and holidays and even the weekends often come with indulgent food options. But like I said before, it's really essential to remember that you have the power to make the choices. So instead of feeling like you're obligated to indulge and do the things that are all kind of happening all around you, take a moment to consider what you truly want in that moment, but also long term. So reflect on the long term goals just for a second and make decisions that align with them. Be very conscious of your choices. You can still enjoy the festivities and still respect your body and your health. Again, I'm not saying don't ever indulge, don't ever eat too much or drink too much. You're going to do that. You're human. But when you do it consciously, you can own that decision and not be afraid of participating in these events when you make those decisions for yourself. Let's see. Oh, this is another good one. What are some strategies to stop falling into those conditioned patterns of mindless eating and drinking? This is a great one. So kind of getting free from those conditioned patterns requires some conscious effort again. And one strategy that I talk about a lot, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, if you've listened to any of the replays, imagine there's like this giant pause button just kind of hovering over you. And before you act, before you reach for the food or the drink or agree to go to the event that you really don't want to go to, hit the pause button, just your imaginary pause button. Just consider for a second, what does this mean? What decision do I want to engage in? Do I want to go to this event and indulge in some foods that I really don't ever get the opportunity to eat? And if the answer is yes, great. It's a mindful decision. If the answer is no, then you also get to decide that maybe I don't want to go to this event. Maybe there's another way that I can connect with these people or that type of thing. Same thing on weekends. You know, your weekends, you're out of your typical routine, and it just requires a little bit of conscious thought. Hit that pause button and yes, go enjoy your weekend, do all the fun things, but decide how you want to show up for yourself while you're doing it. And it's always about the pause and considering what your options are, because there's always options. Okay, let's just take a peek over here. We're good. Okay. This is a great one. How can I resist the temptation just to immediately grab for the dessert as soon as it's presented? Or like that dessert table, right? I mean, especially in the summertime when we have picnics, there's always that picnic table over on the side filled with all the great summer desserts. So I would suggest First of all, asking yourself, do I really want to resist? Or is there a way that I can enjoy something very mindfully and not overdo it? And you get to decide what overdo it means too, by the way. So before you automatically reach, hit the pause button again and ask yourself, what do you really want? What do you really want? Or are you just reacting to a conditioned response? If you're absolutely stuffed from lunch or dinner, and it's how many times have you said this? I don't have room for another bite, but you're not passing the dessert up. Maybe just think about that. Kind of look inward for a second. How do you feel? And maybe come up with other options. If you really do feel like that, like you can't possibly eat another bite and you know you're going to feel awful if you do, pick out something from the table, wrap it up and take it home. That's always an option. Or you can just hit that pause button again and just be really intentional about your choices. If there's something there that you want to try, go ahead and try it and be okay with that. Make the intentional decision that aligns with your desires, not only in the moment, but longer term. Let's see. This is a good one. Boy, this was a tough one for me to do, because I think if you looked up people pleaser in the dictionary, you'd probably find my picture. So this person is asking, how can I assert myself and set clear boundaries when it comes to food and drinks? So setting clear boundaries really requires a lot of self-empowerment and really effective communication, which, by the way, none of us are good at first. We have to practice this stuff, especially if you're like me and you're a career people pleaser. It's not natural feeling to us to take on this self-empowerment and really communicate clearly what we want, what we need. So it's going to feel super uncomfortable when you start doing it. But just know that the more you do it and the more you communicate, the easier it gets and the more natural it starts to feel. So start by recognizing that you have the right to prioritize your own well-being and make choices that align with your values or your goals. Or said differently, just make choices that feel right for you. And you can be assertive and polite at the same time and confidently decline these offers and that just don't align with your intentions or just don't feel right for you. You can decline the dessert or the drink and still enjoy the company of the people around you. And what's really cool about this, it feels like a really big deal to us when we're in the moment trying to practice showing up for ourselves, asserting ourselves. It feels like a big deal and all eyes are on us. But truthfully, nobody cares. It's really not that big a deal to the other people. So communicate your boundaries clearly and kindly, express your needs and desires, but remember, you have the autonomy to make those decisions that serve you the best. You don't have to do it to please someone else. All right. Oh, guilt. Let's talk about guilt. This person is saying, I often feel guilty after indulging something I didn't want. How can I overcome this guilt? So first of all, it's very normal and it's very common to feel guilt after eating something, especially if it's something that you consider an indulgence or maybe a bad food. But it's super important to practice self-compassion when this happens. So instead of dwelling on that guilt, maybe think a little bit about the reasons behind your decision. Was it one of those just patterned responses? Someone offered you something, the dessert cart came around, or the big picnic table covered with desserts was presented, and you just went for it? Maybe that's where that pause button should have come into play. So you can think about, think about what happened, what led up to it, and what led to that decision to do it, because that'll help you in future situations because you're going to have one. So understand in that moment, you may have craved kind of that immediate satisfaction, even if it didn't align with your long-term goals. And again, that's normal. And in fact, that's probably like the hardwiring in our brain. We know, and we have associated food, especially things that give us the big dopamine hit. Like it's sweets for me, it's desserts. Boy, I just see that table over there and my brain just lights up. And I have to be really conscious about the fact that that's happening, hit the pause button, and then decide how I'm going to react. Because if I don't, I am just loading up my plate with everything on that table without giving it any thought. That's my patterned response. So the next time you find yourself in that situation, think back and use the past experiences as a learning opportunity. And just be really mindful to hit the pause button and just stop and think about how you want to react. And when you make a choice and own your choice, like I talked about in the beginning, guilt may still show up, but it won't be as strong. And eventually, when you get really confident in your decision making, the guilt will likely not show up, at least not nearly as strong as it does when you just go all in. All right. Lots of great questions. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this is a good one. We sort of touched on it in the beginning. Do occasional indulgences hinder my overall progress towards a healthier lifestyle? So I think occasional indulgences don't necessarily hinder your overall progress. And in fact, I think it's normal and actually necessary to expect that you're going to live a perfectly healthy lifestyle and never overeat and never overindulge. It's not practical or realistic, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment every single time. And you may have heard me talk about this before. I've kind of adopted a mindset, and I encourage my clients to do this too, that I call most of the time and some of the time. Most of the time, I'm doing the things, practicing the habits, eating the foods that support my personal health and wellness goals. But sometimes I'm going to indulge on something just because I want to, because I've made that conscious decision. And when it's most of the time and some of the time, it balances out. You don't fall into that patterned response that I talked about, where you're completely mindless or moving through the dessert line or whatever it is. I keep using that as an example because I think we can all visualize it. But you keep making those choices without any conscious thought. When you can actually stop and make those conscious decisions and know that an occasional, some of the time event, it really doesn't matter. It will come out in the wash, especially if most of the time you're following those healthy habits and foods and all of the things that you're doing that aligns with your goals. So strive for most of the time with your choices, and sometimes know that you can have the flexibility for pure enjoyment, because food is enjoyable. And I will never tell anybody you can never have apple pie again, or you can never have a dessert again. That's crazy, and it will never work. And you're setting yourself up for disappointment every time. So remember, most of the time, some of the time. All right. This kind of goes to exactly what I was saying. This question is, do I need to be rigidly perfect as I move towards mindful eating and being aware? Absolutely not. It's not practical, it's not reasonable, and it's not sustainable. Rigid perfectionism is absolutely not necessary, regardless of what your eating, food, and body goals are. In fact, the more perfectionistic you are, the harder it is, because you have unrealistic expectations of what your body and your mind and your nervous system can do. There is not a human on this planet that can eat perfectly, whatever that definition is, or follow the plan perfectly all of the time. We have to embrace the idea of progress over perfection. There's no perfectionism in connecting with food and your body and having that relationship with food in your body. There just can't be, for the same reasons I just talked about. We are human, and it's impossible to all of the time be perfect. But most of the time, we can really follow our healthy habits and do all the things that we want to do to be healthy and well. And sometimes we're just going to enjoy things. That's what being human is. Being human is not following a restrictive diet to the letter every single day and then beating yourself up and tearing yourself down because you indulged on something. Oh, I hope that's coming through loud and clear, because I'm so passionate about that. It is the one way I think that we really are so unnecessarily mean to ourselves. We hold ourselves to such a high standard when it comes to our health and wellness, and we don't leave any room for mistakes or enjoyment even. So while it's important to make those really conscious choices and set our intentions and communicate what our boundaries are, flexibility and self-compassion are equally, if not more important, as you're moving towards a more mindful way of eating and having some more body awareness. So allow yourself the freedom to say yes or no based on your desires and needs. That's treating yourself with kindness and patience and respect, and recognizing that growth is going to come from a consistent effort. Again, most of the time and some of the time, and a healthy dose of self-acceptance. All right. I think we have covered all of the questions. Yes, nothing there. Let's just do a quick check. Oh, let's see. I think we got them all. We are in good shape. All right. Well, I thank you for listening to this session of Let's Coach. And if there are any questions that I did not answer, you can go to the Life Coach University website, lifecoachuniversity.com. You can go to the Coaches tab, find my picture, and just click the button to contact me. Send me your questions, and I will respond personally as quickly as I can. That's my aim for this. Even if you're watching on replay and you have questions, I want you to take advantage of that feature and ask me anything. You can also email me directly at support@normafrahncoaching.com. My name's right in the corner of the screen here for the spelling, and I'd be happy to talk with you that way as well. So don't forget, go to lifecoachuniversity.com. Check out the Let's Coach schedule. We have a ton of amazing coaches from all different walks of life and areas of specialty. And there's Let's Coach sessions available almost every day of the week, including the weekends, that you can jump into for free with just by clicking a Zoom link. And like I said, some of the best learning and coaching I ever got was just listening in. So if there's nothing pressing on your mind, but you have a few minutes where you really want to give yourself a break and listen in to someone, just hop into a Let's Coach session that's going on and just take it all in. I promise you something will be said that you can apply to your life right there that day. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me on Let's Coach, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.